Welcome everyone to our intermittent fasting webinar. I'm looking at our time. We've got just a minute or so we'll wait just a moment and make sure people have time to join and that we don't start too early. But thank you for joining us tonight. Hopefully no kids that should be in bed will be interrupting.
No kidding.
Oh, I guess, let's see. My phone says 8:01. My computer's a little bit behind. What do you have, Miranda?
Yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, alrighty. Well, let's do that. Well, I'm Stephanie Swanson, and my friend Miranda is on here as well. And we both have been using intermittent fasting for a while and really enjoy it. And we just wanted to share what we've learned because I think what I found is, this was true for me when I first heard about it. I had a lot of misconceptions about what intermittent fasting was. And I've just learned so much recently. And there's a lot of research about health benefits. And so I just wanted to share what I've learned. I know Miranda wants to share what she's learned too, and that it can actually benefit a lot of people. So that's what we wanted to share tonight. I actually started intermittent fasting just this past fall, and my husband had been doing it for a couple of years. And when he first told me about it, I thought he was crazy because he said, "Oh, this is something to help you lose weight and you only eat between these hours." And I was like, "Well, no, you're supposed to eat like a bunch of meals throughout the day for like your metabolism or something." And anyway, I thought he was a little crazy, but anyway, it helped him lose weight when he had started to do it. So he's been doing it for a couple of years. And I was just always that person who really loved breakfast, and I couldn't really go without food in the morning or I'd feel kind of sick. And so I just was like, no, I can't do intermittent fasting. In this fall, I was back to teaching and just having to like leave right away in the morning and not having a whole lot of time. And my husband's like, "Why don't you just try intermittent fasting? Because you don't have to worry about making breakfast or cleaning up breakfast, and it's just faster. And just try it and see." And so I did. I started trying it. I even went to going from my coffee that I would usually have sweetened to just black coffee in the morning, which was a big step for me. But I found that I really could make it all the way up till lunchtime, and I really enjoyed it. I just felt like I had like good energy throughout the morning, even though I hadn't eaten. And I felt like I just had better mental clarity too. Like I was just more alert, and I just really found that it was convenient and I really enjoyed it. And when on the weekends, I would eat breakfast if I wanted to, but during the week, I would do intermittent fasting. So that's kind of how I got introduced to it. And I'm not currently doing it because I'm pregnant, but I was doing it up until I found out that I was pregnant and plan to go back to doing it after I have the baby. So yeah, what about you, Miranda?
Yeah, so I actually started fasting back in 2018. So I had my first child at the end of 2016 and was going to the gym for the last year or the whole year of 2017. And, I really wasn't losing weight, mainly because I don't really like to eat healthy foods. Well, I should say I didn't like to eat healthy foods. So fasting was a great way for me to kind of control the calories I was taking in while still, trying to control the calories, right? Controlling them by limiting the window of eating them. So I really only like sweets for breakfast too. So skipping breakfast wasn't a big deal for me. I'm a huge cinnamon roll fan. So not like the healthiest, right? Not a lot of protein in cinnamon rolls. But I started finding that I had a lot more energy, a lot more focus, and a lot of just things were changing. My hair was better, my nails were better. And so I did a lot of research because I'm a big fan of weightlifting. That's kind of my go-to exercise. I'm not a huge fan of cardio, although I will run. But I really like lifting weights. And so I wanted to figure out like, what's the best way for me to lift weights and still be healthy and making sure that I'm like not doing harm to my body. So it was just really interesting to do all that research. And I thought I needed to share some of that because I think a lot of people aren't sure what IF is and all those different things. But over the course of 5 months, I did lose 40 pounds. Since then I've had another baby. So I actually just started getting back into fasting again. So I'm like on the opposite end of you, Steph. So you were, and then now I am.
I didn't realize you had lost 40 pounds doing that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah. And then so since you had your baby and then while nursing, you found you've been able to incorporate it even while nursing too?
Yeah, so he is almost 11 months, and it hasn't really affected my supply at all. And he was actually starting to wean just a little bit already, but it hasn't affected my supply. So that's been really nice. So I will go, and we'll talk about this later, but I'll go anywhere from like 16 to 20 hours of fasting, and it doesn't hit my supply because I stay hydrated, which is a big thing for supply.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really amazing. Yeah. Well, so some of the health benefits that we've found, and we found these online. There's lots of articles published about studies that have been done. Some of the health benefits obviously can be weight loss, like Miranda talked about. I just did it. I didn't need to lose weight, but for me, I kind of tried it out of convenience, but I noticed that benefit of just like the mental clarity and just having like really good energy throughout the day, which I was really surprised. And another health benefit is that it can make your body less insulin resistant. And if you look up insulin resistance at all online, you'll see it's kind of becoming like a major problem in our society, just with the high sugar foods that we tend to consume. Many people are becoming insulin resistant and they may not know it, but it can lead to a lot of other issues. So this really helps with that. And then it could also, there's some studies that have shown that it might improve your immune system, could also lower your diabetes risk, and then improve your heart health even. And then another thing that it does is that it increases the human growth hormone, which is an important part of your whole body. So we always recommend that you check with a doctor before starting something like this. Always check with a doctor. We are not medical professionals. We are just sharing our personal experience with you, but good to check with a doctor when you're starting something like this. And also, especially like if you are taking any medication on a regular basis, that might affect if you can fast or when you can fast. So just make sure to check with your doctor is always a good idea.
Muted myself and I forgot to unmute. So the next thing I want to talk about would be the kind of what you were talking about, Steph, is the different books and some of the actual, maybe more of the experts that talk about these things. So the first book I read was The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung, and he has done a bunch of work with type 2 diabetics and essentially reversing that type 2 diabetes with fasting protocols, which, obviously getting your, weight under control is a huge thing that type 2 diabetics can suffer from and benefit from. But it was really interesting work. And he talks a lot about the science behind what fasting does and the different kind of protocols that they say. So I don't know, if you're interested in fasting, I think that's one of the best books to read because you'll get like the doctor's point of view. And then two others that are by the same person, Delay, Don't Deny, and also Fast, Feast, and Repeat, which I'm currently reading right now because everyone recommends it. But she also goes and pulls studies and talks about all the different aspects of fasting and different ways that it's good for you, it's bad for you, or different things you have to be watching for. It was just a really, really beneficial book so far. So I've enjoyed it. So these are the three that if you like the science or you want to know more from maybe reputable sources, these are the three I would check out for sure. So let's talk about some common fasting practices. Now, I just call it fasting. I know that Steph and a lot of others call it intermittent fasting, but man, intermittent is just like the worst word. So I just call it fasting. So some common times that you'll hear people talk about is like ratios. So they'll say 16-8. And so that just means that you have 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating. So if you do like a 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating, There's also OMAD, which is 1 meal a day, which you eat everything in an hour. And I personally, I know this is crazy to a lot of people, but I've tried all sorts of things. I've done multi-day fasts. I've done all these different things. So I've really tested out a bunch of things just personally because I knew what would work for my body. And like I said, I did a ton of research. But for sure, if you're just starting out, ease into it. Go, if you normally eat, and end at 9 o'clock at night and start eating at 7 in the morning, well, maybe wait until 8 o'clock. And then a few days later, go at 9. Just gradually extend those fasts. I think that'll be really helpful. Exercise, like I talked about in the beginning, I'm a huge proponent of exercise. I do it multiple days a week. But it's a great way to gain even more benefits because your glycogen stores are pretty much depleted while you fast. And so then you just get the added benefit of fat burning. So I always found that to be really awesome. But also I would hit PRs while I was doing these multi-day fasts. So obviously ease into it and listen to your body, but it's a great thing to do. And then water, be sure you stay hydrated. It will help curb all the kind of negative effects that you can get. So dizziness or headaches. So I have my water bottle with me literally everywhere I go. But the other thing I do is I add electrolytes. So it's like a teaspoon or a half a teaspoon of these different things. So I have no salt, which is potassium chloride. And then I have pink Himalayan salt I use. I use some Epsom salts, make sure it's just food grade. And then I also use baking soda. And there's some different recipes you can find online if you look for, natural electrolytes. But none of those things will break your fast. It's just minerals to help your body stay hydrated. So you don't just, we'll just be honest here, don't just pee out your water, right? It helps kind of absorb some of that hydration to keep you satisfied.
Nice. So those are really great tips, and those books sounded really good too, Miranda. I like the one that was titled like Don't Deny, Delay or whatever, because I think that's such a huge part of fasting that's kind of nice for a lot of people is you don't necessarily have to go on like some restrictive diet to lose weight. This is like another option for great weight loss results without having to, like totally eliminate a bunch of foods. You're just eating within a certain window. So I had found just some other guides specifically for women. So I just wanted to mention these if you are a woman and you're new to fasting. What they recommend is kind of like what Miranda said, easing into it, starting with not necessarily fasting every single day, but just fasting 2 or 3 days a week and alternating days. Some studies found that women who started out doing it like every day, some of them could have kind of like a hormone imbalance, maybe throw off your cycles and things like that. So they recommend, this is what's called crescendo fasting. So you're basically fasting every other day, and then you can do, like 12 to 16 hours, kind of like those windows that Miranda mentioned. And on the days that you're fasting, at the beginning, you might want to just do light to moderate exercise, like yoga, for instance, or just walking. And then on your days where you're not fasting, do more intense exercise. But all the time, still drink plenty of water. So those are just some tips. Now, Miranda mentioned she never had any issues with fasting throwing off cycles. I hadn't really noticed anything either, but I also I'd been doing it for a few months, and it wasn't like over a long period of time. But anyway, just something to keep in mind, and just as you start, basically just kind of ease into it. And again, always good to check with your doctor too if you start to notice some things that maybe are a sign of your cycle getting thrown off or hormones feeling off. Then that's a good time to also check in with your doctor. So as far as how we break our fast, that's really important as well. What you eat when you actually break that fast and start your feasting window. So it's good to kind of ease into that. So you don't want to consume like a huge meal right away. What I actually do is about 30 minutes before I eat. But when it starts at the beginning of my feasting window, I break my fast by mixing up this drink. It's called Slim, and it helps with balancing blood sugar and supporting my metabolism. And it's just like a powder I mix up with water, and I drink that about 30 minutes before I eat, because that way it has a chance to get into my bloodstream and get absorbed and everything. And so then about 30 minutes later, that's when I actually eat my meal. And so what I would often do, typically just because I was bringing a lunch with me to work, most of the time my lunches were just like a big salad with like spinach and tomatoes and cucumbers, and then I might have like hard-boiled egg in there for some protein, some avocado. So I was usually doing like a pretty healthy lunch with plenty of veggies in there when I did break my fast, and also some healthy fats and protein, because you don't necessarily want to cut down on the number of calories you're eating. You still want to get the right amount of calories in that window. So your lunch can be, more substantial to help keep you full, but it's good with a lot of veggies in there. You kind of ease into it. Um, so you don't want to, like it kind of says there, don't grab like fries and a shake, even though you might feel like so hungry, because what you'll find is actually when I would start eating, even though I might feel pretty hungry at the beginning, as I started to eat my meal, I would get filled up pretty quickly. So you just don't want to like go after food and then overeat and feel sick right after you've broken your fast with that first meal. So definitely focusing on, more vegetables in that first meal, getting some healthy snacks. Maybe, for your protein, you can even do like a protein shake. There's some great meal replacement shakes that we really like, but those are kind of just some tips for breaking your fast. You don't want to just go crazy and eat like whatever you feel like, your body might not respond in the best way.
Yeah, I'll add to that because, like I said, I fasted for a long time before I got pregnant with my second child. And I've experienced all sorts of terribleness that can come with fasting. And 100%, if you break your fast and have like scarf down fries, sometimes you just don't have an option. And it's just horrible. Like it's just absolutely horrible. So I don't recommend that at all. And that's why Steph talked about, I think one of the best ways is to just really slowly integrate like slight insulin whatever I'm trying to say, response from your body. So like she said, so she does Slim, and I also have my Slim here to show you guys. The other thing I also did was coconut water, and you obviously want to make sure that you read your labels because you don't want something that's full of sugars. But there's some natural coconut water is also a great way to break your fast, especially if you do a longer one, not one of those shorter ones. And then like Steph was saying, I break my fast with a Slim, and then the 30 to 60 minutes later than I do my meal. So I usually do a big old spinach salad with some red peppers or just some different bell peppers, and then cucumber. And then I found this Bolt House Farms dressing that's super low in calories, and it's really delicious. So that's usually what I have. And then I also mix together my protein shake, which is I use the lean from Plexus, and I do a scoop of this chocolate and also a scoop of the vanilla with some almond milk, and it's just absolutely perfect. So, and then we eat supper as normal, and then I go back to fasting again at like 6 o'clock. So it's just, one of those things that you just figure out that works for your family, I think, in the end, because, like we usually break our fast because my husband does it too. And he works from home, so it kind of works out well. But, between 11 and noon or even 1 o'clock, just depends on if we're hungry or not. We just always listen to our bodies. And then we usually stop eating around 6 or 6:30 because we have two littles that want to eat really early. So for us, it's really easy to just get into that system or that cycle. And I don't know, it goes by pretty fast. So let's see. Let's talk about the last slide, Steph.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I guess I kind of forgot to mention too, well, I would typically, it was usually around 11:30 or so when I would start to break my fast, 11:30, 12, kind of that same period, and then eat. And then it would be done by 8 o'clock. Normally we're typically done much earlier than that. But if I was still feeling like kind of hungry after dinner, I would have like a fat bomb. So my husband and I typically follow like a keto diet. So I'd have some yummy fat bombs and that I would have, but anyway, I'd be done by 8 o'clock. And then that was usually kind of that would start my 16-hour window. So, yeah, so we typically, we'd eat dinner, like Miranda said, kind of early because we have young kids too. And my husband especially has found doing keto with intermittent fasting for him has worked well for helping with weight loss, but everybody's different. I know Miranda does kind of like normal diet and a mix of plant-based too with her husband. So the nice thing is with intermittent fasting that you can, kind of, you still want to try to eat healthy, but you don't have to be super restrictive or follow one strict diet plan. It's just kind of monitoring and changing those times that you're actually eating. So, anyway, these are things that we share about on social media quite a bit. I try to share like some keto meal plans, but Miranda shares a lot of good fitness things too. So if you want to check us out or just follow more, get more tips and info, you can find us there on Instagram. And we're also part of a fun health-based community on Facebook called Rise Up Wellness. And so you can also search for that group. It's a public group, so anyone can join it, but there's also lots of tips and things in there, and especially on the products, like we both like Slim and Lean, some of those we use some natural supplements, and there's info in that group on those things that we like to use along with our intermittent fasting. So yeah, anything else, Miranda?
I don't think I have anything else, but if anyone has questions, you find our handles there on the screen. And feel free to reach out, send us a message or, comment on one of our photos if you have a question about it. But we would love to help you guys out with anything you might be curious on. So if you're watching the replay, you can still reach out to us. We're both here. We're always going to be here loving that fasting life. Because like you said, your family's both in, you and your husband were doing it, or you were doing it, and then your husband's still doing it, and mine is as well. And we've had a lot of success, and I don't see us stopping anytime soon. But the one tip I will say is don't tell people you're fasting, because they get really weirded out by it, even if it's like, I think it's super mainstream now. But man, in 2018, people they just freaked out and thought, you're ruining your metabolism. And there's so many different, I think, things. And I think it still happens, right, Steph? I think people still will say these things, but it's maybe a little more socially accepted now that it's come a little more, I don't know, but
yes, I feel like you do hear about it more, and I think there's just more research starting to be out there too. But yeah, you might definitely get some weird looks at first when you talk about it.
I for sure would say, like, just let it like fit into your lifestyle, because I think people get like, oh, I'm fasting, I cannot eat. But if you get invited out to go have drinks with your best friend, especially after COVID land, like, go have drinks with your best friend, even if you're fasting, but make sure you eat food, because I've also done that, and that is not a good idea. So like, balance that out, right? But just don't let fasting, it's just your lifestyle, right? If you're going to do this forever, like, it's just one day. It's just like eating a cheat meal or eating a bunch of cookies. It's just one meal. Don't let it ruin the rest of your life. Like, just let it incorporate into your lifestyle. I think that would be my biggest tip for someone who is interested in starting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We hope that you learned a lot. And like we said, just contact us if you've got questions or want to learn more. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.